Hey guys, I just like to slip this in before the video starts that I'm okay. I may look very tired in the video. I think it's just because it was a long day, and yeah, it was a lot more serious than normal. I think there were a lot of heavier topics in the books that I read, so it's a lot more serious. There's less jokes, but hopefully you still enjoy it. Alright, I'll see you. Go on to the video. Hi everybody, guess what? We're finally going to be talking about some books today because this is a Bookstagram account. Aha! Okay, hi! For those who don't know me, my name is Sue. And today we'll be doing a July and August wrap-up because I didn't do one in July because I read very little. In August, I also read very little. So together, it's a mediocre amount. And by that I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 books. 3 per month. What? That's less than 1 book per week. Oh well. And one of them is like this thin. Such is life. How's everybody? You're okay? You doing fine? Please comment down below how you've been doing. I want to know. I haven't talked to some of you in a while. Alright, without further ado, let's just get to the books. The first book I read in the month of July was this book. It's called The Ministry of Moral Panic by Amanda Lee Koh. This is an anthology of short stories about Singapore. Like a lot of Singaporean perspectives. All of them are really gritty and kind of controversial, and all the characters are very wild and crude and controversial thoughts and experiences. It's something that you wouldn't expect, I think, especially me as a Singaporean. I'm not sure if anybody else would expect it, but because our country is very conservative and straight-laced and just like reading a bunch of stories about sex or about people's fantasies or like kind of taboo thoughts, I guess. Some of it which, you know, we do think of just as humans, just that we don't say it out loud, and some of them which I've never really thought of before, and just hearing it and hearing the pain and the suffering that some of these characters go through kind of sucks. But the whole time I was reading it, I was just thinking, even though these stories sound so bizarre and something that doesn't seem to be in line with what the Singapore society looks like in my head, it probably is what people go through on a daily basis, right? Like, human lives are actually so diverse, and there's so much happening under the facade that they put up that we won't even know about. And so I think that even though this is really gritty and crude, it's kind of realistic, and a lot of it I related to because I'm human and I have weird thoughts sometimes. So yeah, I think this was really hard for me to read because I get very affected by sexual assault or like anything that kind of challenges my worldview. So it was uncomfortable, but I think it's important to read uncomfortable things because it gives you a new perspective on life. So I really like this, and it was the first sing-lit book that I actually read out of like non-obligation. I like wanted to read it. So Amanda Lee Koh is a very popular author, Singaporean author, so yeah, I would recommend it if anybody wants to read it. The next book I read is Call Me By Your Name. I'm rapping a little bit. The next book I read is Call Me By Your Name by Andreas Simon. It's a good book. I love the movie. I'm still talking about it till this day. This story is about Elio and one of his father, who's a professor student, or like a student that he's helping to like write his dissertation. And yeah, the student is named Oliver, and they basically fall in love over the course of this book. And I really like this book. What I really just love about this love story is how honest it is, and how atmospheric Andrea Simon's writing is, and his ability to just pinpoint and extract those very thoughts at the moment that we are thinking them as humans. You know, when we fall in love with someone or when we are anxious about whether someone likes us back, like he manages to just extract those thoughts that a normal person would have and just like write it in words, and it's beautiful, and I really liked it. So I would always recommend this book and this movie. I did like the movie better though. Whoop, by the way, you should go check out Finaretti's video on Call Me By Your Name because she's also a big fan of Call Me By Your Name, an even bigger fan than me. And she talks about it and talks about what she loves about it and everything. It's a very nice, beautiful, aesthetic video. So, and she like lives in Greece and stuff, so like it's all beaches and beautifulness, and she's a beautiful person, so go watch her video on that. Alright, the next book I read was, I think, the first non-fiction book that I ever read that is voluntary, and that is This Is What Inequality Looks Like by Teo Yo Yen. She is a sociology professor, and she wrote this book about inequality in Singapore. I think it's more of class inequality than any other kind of equality. So yeah, I really like this book. It was really easy to read, even though it's a non-fiction book and it's kind of like written with like a lot of research and stuff. She also puts her own personal voice into the essays that she wrote in this book. It's a collection of essays, and yeah, I really appreciated it. I think one thing that I really took away from this book was that we keep looking at people of a low income status as maybe an other, or like people that we kind of have to help in society. And while that may be true, they're not exactly an other, because we all function with the same social fabric and like the same social rules as the rest of society. Like, all function under the same rules, right? So whatever we think and whatever rules that we perpetuate affect the lower income people, and we can't separate ourselves that way, because like everything we do just affects each other in that sense, because we're part of the same society, especially Singapore, because we are so small, we are so contained within this island and within this social atmosphere. So yeah, and another thing that struck me a lot about in this book was that there was this one portion. She said that the world and spaces of a low-income person versus a slightly wealthier person is very different. Like, for example, for me, I come from a upper middle income family, and my world is literally the whole of Singapore. I can go to any space, I can go anywhere I want. It seems very small to me, Singapore, because I've been to other countries, I've flown everywhere. But for somebody who's of low income, they might not get these experiences. Their world is so much smaller. They go from home to supermarket to picking up the child, go back home. They do this every day, and they might only expand their world every once in a while. So I thought that was very interesting, and it's really a lot to think about when it comes to understanding my own society and how I can possibly, check my privilege, and also maybe how I can just be more empathetic. Alright, the next book I read is The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. So I buddy read this book with Kieran from KDBooks, and I think what struck me is that I could understand that I feel like communism is just, at least especially in a democratic capitalistic society that we live in, that most of the Western world lives in, you just feel like communism is like, haha, there's a thing of the past. That was like a big joke that, not a joke, it's definitely not a joke, but it was a big thing that kind of failed. Communism failed, at least the version that was brought about by the Soviet Union. So yeah, but reading it, I must say I really understood that plight and that want for equality, and that passion for wanting to like level the playing field. So yeah, I really was surprised that I understood, and that I kind of related, that want of social change, and political change was the way you bring that about. Yeah, but it's too much. I think I'm too dumb. But I must say it was interesting reading it right after I read This Is What Inequality Looks Like, because from This Is What Inequality Looks Like as a preamble, I understood the ideas and the dynamics of inequality in a society, and to read this right after, which is kind of the solution to that, was pretty interesting. Yeah, maybe I'm not... Tell me if I'm understanding it wrong, okay? The next book I read was this, The Inheritance of Loss by Kiran Desai. I've asked my boyfriend how to pronounce this. Apparently it's Kiran Desai. This book is set in India, mainly set in the small village of Kalimpong in the northern part of India, so like near the border of Nepal and India. And yeah, it explores a lot of themes of race, of loss, inheritance of loss, of immigration, touches on loss and guilt, and a lot of things that you experience when your country is going through a sort of transition and a turmoil, political turmoil. So yeah, but the book doesn't focus on any of like the big political characters. It focuses on like the everyday people of this village, and also an immigrant of this village to America, which you see that perspective as well. And this is a really interesting book. I understand what it was trying to do in like portraying what like the everyday life of an individual is, but it took me a month to read it, and I just nothing made me want to read more of it. Like, I guess I just didn't enjoy the writing style enough, and I just didn't enjoy the characters enough. Especially in the front 4/5 of this book, the characters were very passive, very little agency, and I guess that's the point, you know, like they are just kind of being carried away by the political times of this novel, and a lot of them, even though they're just individuals who have their own individual wants and individual desires that have nothing to do with politics, some of them just because of their status as maybe a minority that's been marginalized, they are forced to be, you know, swept up in all of this politics and everything like that, and that's very powerful. But the way it was portrayed, I guess I couldn't appreciate it. It was a Man Booker winner in 2006, so I expected a lot more. I think the problem was that I expected a lot, and it was alright. I wasn't super touched, I wasn't swept off my feet. It tells it as it is, I guess, and you have to appreciate it for that. But okay, I must give credit where it's due. A lot of the writing I really enjoyed. Like it's weird because it's kind of inconsistent for me. Like there were moments where the writing was really annoying, and I kind of skipped over chunks of text because it was like, even if I didn't read all the details, I would kind of know what's happening anyway. So that was my fault. But yeah, that's how much I found some of the writing irrelevant. But some of the writing was really beautiful. Like there was a moment okay, because this book doesn't really have a traditional plot structure, so there was a moment where one of the characters was like, don't you miss when there were old books where there was like proper plot structure, you know, none of that newfangled book where like things just happen. Like I think it was calling like its own self out, which was pretty cool. And there were other moments where the writing was really very rich and beautiful, and there were moments where I just like, oh, this is so annoying. So pros and cons. And I buddy read this book with Freddie, and it was very enjoyable actually, buddy reading it with him. We talked about it a lot. Every week we kind of caught up with each other, and I really enjoyed his insights. I really enjoyed his opinions about this book and the characters and stuff. He's a very opinionated and sassy kind of person who has a lot of meticulous and interesting ideas about books and what he wants in a book. So yeah, it was very enjoyable having that buddy read with him. So yeah, KDBooks actually recommended this book, and I'm sorry I didn't enjoy it as much as you did, Kieran, but well, it is what it is, and I'm glad I read it either way. You know, I think it's my first Man Booker. I've never read a Man Booker before this. Out of frame. Alright. And the last book that I read, Shirtless, the Self-Proclaimed. It is by Marko Vignejevic. I'm so sorry, Marco. I can't pronounce your last name for anything. But yeah, Shirtless, the Self-Proclaimed. This book was sent to me by Ethos Books to review, and thank you so much, Ethos, for like wanting me to review this in the first place. I'm very honored that you thought of me. I don't know. I read this book really fast. It's only like 100 pages. I read it in 2 nights. This book is basically an absurdist story about a guy who starts a political party by himself. So it's an independent political party, and it kind of is about the ideas of how no matter how noble your intentions were when you first started a political party, or like started getting attention for your political views, power always gets to people. First book that I read ever on a commentary of political fiction. It didn't really leave a very strong impression on me, and I didn't want to look too heavily into it because I feel like if a book does impact me, I will feel it immediately, and I didn't. And even though it was a good read, as in I read through it in 2 sittings, it was entertaining enough. But yeah, the ideas wise, I felt like it wasn't meant to be a super strong development, and I wasn't expecting it. I think that was the problem, is I was expecting something else. I was expecting the moral of the story to be more absurd. I was expecting maybe a critique on traditional government, and like because this guy starts his own independent government, for the independent government to be critiquing maybe that traditional government. But I think that's kind of just like a projection of what's happening politically in my own country. So maybe that's why I wasn't expecting something like this, and I was expecting something else. But that's on me. That's on me. It's good enough. Like, this book is not bad. It's not bad. I think some would say that they liked it, so yeah. I'm just being honest. Please still send me books, guys. Thanks. Yeah, these are all the books that I read in the months of July and August. So hopefully I'll be reading more books in the next few months, hopefully, but if not, then well, I had many jokes today, I realized. I'm sorry for that, but yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.